Welcome to WJTS Inform. I'm your host, Bill Potter, and it's Friday and time to meet again with Indiana State Representative from District 63, Mark Messmer. Mark, welcome to the show.
Morning. Good to be here, Bill. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I guess we're getting down to the end of the year, and we may not have too many more of these sessions with you, but we look forward to this one with you today.
Well, we got 3 weeks of session left, so getting down to our committee work. We'll wrap up. Monday would be the final committee day. Tuesday, committee reports will be the final day for anything that's going to come out of committee, and then Wednesday we'll start on the process of wrapping up third readings, second reading and third reading on bills. The following Tuesday will be the culmination of the 16th. We'll have wrapped up all final processing of bills, and then we'll just be down to conference committee time.
Okay, and then so. Really, in the next 3 weeks, that's when most of the bills will get passed.
Yep.
But there has been at least 2 or 3 bills already passed.
There's actually, I did run a recap of it. We have 17 House bills that have been through the House and the Senate and signed by the governor.
Okay, wow.
And 9 Senate bills that have been through the House and Senate. And at this point, if they're signed, it means that they've probably, when they left the House, went to the Senate, or Senate went to the House, when they were in the other chamber, they didn't get changed. Mm-hmm. And so they went straight to the governor for signature.
Like the property tax bill for agribusiness.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was, you said that was state law number 1.
Yes, public law number 1 for 2013. So that one is that was the first one we did, and there's several more that have been. I think there's 40 House bills that have been passed by the Senate. With 23 of those having some changes. There is 53 Senate bills that have been passed by the House, and some of those will go to conference committee to either. And I had 3 bills that passed third reading in the Senate this week, their final passage. They were all tweaked just a little bit, small definition changes, or in the case of the levy bill that I had, we had amended in the Jasper cabinet language that got unanimous passage in the Senate. So that bill, the financial institution tax reduction bill, to get it on par with the rest of the corporate taxes, and the civil immunity bill for engineers and architects and land surveyors when they volunteer in the case of a national disaster or state of emergency. All of those passed unanimously in the Senate. They originally all passed unanimously in the House. They'll have some slight changes. My intention is on all of those to concur to the changes, because I worked with the Senate sponsors all the way through. We'll vote on them one more time in the House and for final passage, but they were all unanimous all the way through. Should be on our final version as well. Do
you know when your 3 bills are going to come back and when they'll be voted on?
Sometime this week, probably, since they were non-controversial changes. But we've got to, usually before we vote on those concurrence motions and the final passage, we talk about it within our caucus. And now that all 3 of those bills have passed and we know the final form of them, next week we'll meet as a group with all of the fellow Republican House members, and I'll tell them about the changes that were made, and then we all agree as a group to concur to those changes. But there's nothing unexpected or controversial in any of them. So concur on those, then they'll get on the calendar for concurrence votes, and sometime between now and April 29th, I guess I should say, but the exact date, who knows? But since the ones that are dissents and then have conference committee, those tend to pile up at the very end. But the ones that are concurred can move pretty quickly, starting next week.
Okay, so we're going to see these bills pass, good bills.
Mm-hmm.
One pertains to the Jasper floodplain sort of deal. Mm-hmm. Will that then become law in July 1st?
July 1st. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so movement can be made
pretty quickly. Yeah, I think the city's already starting to look at how we can implement that, how that can be part of our master plan. It'll give the building owner or developers some time to start thinking about what are they going to do with it. So be a great opportunity for riverfront development. With all the work we've put in with the Restore Rojack, the mill, the train depot, with all the other stuff we've done with the Riverwalk pathways, and it'll be a nice piece to complement the work that's been done down there.
And we still are, you have the supermajority with the Republicans, but there really hasn't been any bills that have come up that have caused a whole lot of disagreement.
You could still, I'm pretty close to saying you could count them on maybe one hand, but in the whole entire session, I know you could count them on two hands, where there are bills that have really just kind of locked down. We had one this week that dealt with election updates, things that are, trying to clean up and make elections, I guess more accountable, make registration. Just normal cleanup stuff, and why that one breaks down on party line votes, I don't know, but that one did. And there was one this week that we dealt with quite a bit yesterday. We had about 3 hours of amendment debate. Indianapolis, Marion County, is governed by what they call Unigov.
Okay.
And it's been that way for 40 years, and every 5 to 10 years there's, they need to have changes or things that need to be updated. Since it's developed by statute, it's got to be updated by statute. And that one pretty well locked down along party line votes on most of the amendments, as I'm sure final passage of the bill next week will be as well. But it's been very, very, that was probably the most contentious bill we had. The whole session was dealing with Marion County, governance, which, and 90% of the state could care less.
Right, because it's Marion County.
Yeah.
And I guess it's been the same way in the Senate too, probably.
Pretty well, yeah. And I would imagine almost every bill has come out of the Senate bipartisan, and really still probably of all the bills we've dealt with, out of 200 to 300 bills that have been either first half or Senate bills we processed second half, you're still less than 10 that have been, contentious. Mm-hmm. Probably 5 or 6 that have been contentious, and the rest are really bipartisan. Really, most of them, even if they have split votes, are House, Senate, Democrat, Republican, both voting against, Democrat, Republican, both voting for. So, even some that have been, we had a right to life bill that dealt with chemical abortions this week. Mm-hmm. That was a bipartisan bill. There was Democrat, Republicans voted for, Democrat, Republicans voted against. It passed 70 to 26, but it was a bipartisan bill. And, a little bit contentious, but not, that didn't raise to the elevation of some of the more controversial bills have been, but none of them have elevate to what we dealt with the last 2 years. So this year's still been a nice session to work with, and even when there's been spirited debate on the floor, it's been done respectfully.
It's very good.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's probably a little bit too early to talk about this, although it's the one thing that people talk about the most having to do with legislature this year, and that's the budget.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And where are we on the budget? That
the Senate Appropriations Committee passed their version of the budget out this week. I don't know if it was Wednesday or Thursday, and that bill will then go to the Senate floor for final passage and floor amending next week, and then that one will obviously, since there's been changes in this, in the Senate, it didn't change structurally very much. They've got the same amount of K through 12 spending as we had in the House, the same amount of higher education spending as we had in the House. They've got a little bit more in there for performance bonuses for schools that are, that are improving their, either if they're a high-performing school, if they maintain it, or if they've got what they call performance bonus, in there for K through 12 that I don't think we had in the House budget. I think they've got $25 million in the Senate budget. They do have a 3% income tax reduction scheduled to start January 1st, 2015. Which would be the last 6 months of the budget cycle. It'd be a 3% reduction rather than the 10% that the governor was looking for. But that is still subject to change based on the April 15th, final revenue forecast that we get. I think they were still kind of constrained to dealing with the budget forecast that we were given in December and trying to make all that work. Probably the only thing that was much different, we had $250 million more per year for road funding. They dropped it to $200 million more per year for road funding, above the $280 that we were currently spending. So still a pretty nice increase, not as much as we had, but to try to make everything fit, within the budget projections that we had from December, they try to give it their signature, and that will be the last thing we vote on. It'll be the last conference committee report that we get. April 26th or April 29th, whatever, it'll be the final piece that we deal with, and won't quit changing until the final day. Never does. But the structurally similar Senate and House versions, I mean, everybody's kind of got the same targets in mind.
So basically, what we're hearing about the budget now is a little more focused than it was, but it's still not definite and could be changed.
Right.
Slightly,
Yeah.
and probably just slightly.
Slight changes. You know, they'll move numbers around a little bit to get the differences between the two versions done. They'll make adjustments based on the final revenue forecast, up or down. And but overall, it's pretty much the same as we passed. I mean, 95% of it's the same as what passed out of the House the first half, and it'll continue to get tweaked and adjusted, and there'll be negotiations and bargaining, and between the conference committee members, up to the final bell.
Are you happy with the way the budget's looking right now?
Overall, yeah, overall. Okay. I'm satisfied with where we had the first half. Nothing drastically changed in what the Senate did the second half, and so the final product will end up, I think with, in the end, something that everybody's going to be able to take a little piece of victory from it and be pretty satisfied with.
Okay, now this is unusual, but we have a little bit of time left.
Okay.
In talking, is there something you'd like to bring up? Talk about.
Well, there was one other bill. Okay. I mean, I don't know that any of the Senate bills we passed this week were hugely momentous, but one that we passed that I think will help families with kids in school was Senate Bill 532. It's going to allow what they call the Indiana Secondary Markets Program to go into the student loan program that's really been vacant. I mean, basically you went out and got and banks really aren't writing private loans for college education anymore. The federal government took over a good chunk of that, but there's a program out there, and several states have adopted it. Would be to allow, there's a company that just specializes in student loans, and in the private market. That we're going to, we had to pass some legislation to allow them to operate in Indiana, but they'll work through the financial aid offices at all the colleges in the state, mm-hmm. and allow them to offer some private low interest loans for kids who need extra money for school. And they're anticipating it could impact or help as many as 10,000 kids per year, in getting access to cash that they need to, if they need that for continuing their college education. So, nice bill, passed out of the Senate, or the House and Senate both. Slight changes. I'm sure the Senate will probably concur to the changes we made, and get that out into the hands of our constituents that have college-age kids.
All right, well, Mark, thank you very much for coming in.
You're welcome.
Our guest has been State Representative Mark Messmer for District 63, resides in Jasper, Indiana. Thank you for watching WJTS Inform. We are local people watching local people.